Hey, I clicked it right this time. Welcome again to the Path to Profit podcast. We start everyone with a silly laugh for some reason. I'm Brad Dobson. This is my wife, Dr. Manette Riordan, and we're happy to have Audra Grady with us today. Welcome, Audra.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No, we're super excited for this conversation. We know it's going to be a juicy one. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Audra. But before I do, I'm going to share our quote for the show, which if you've been following us for a while, I love quotes. So I always share one. And I try to connect them to what we're going to talk about. And it would probably be really smart if I, brought it back at the end of the conversation and see how it all played together. So, live brainstorming a little bit. But this quote was, "Be there for others, but never leave yourself behind." Be there for others, but never leave yourself behind. By Dodinsky. Don't know who Dodinsky is, but it felt like a really cool quote from that perspective of mindset shifts that we have to make as entrepreneurs and moms and women and dads, and that we often tend to take care of others first without taking care of ourselves.
That was actually great advice we got once from a life coach. Because we had little ones at the time. Both the kids were and we kind of had our self-care pyramid inverted. And she said, "You know what?
It was a funnel."
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have to come. Yourself has to come first. So.
Yeah, so true. So let me share a little bit about Audra.
Please.
Because Audra's done some pretty amazing things already. She has a master's in organizational management, extensive training in social entrepreneurship and small business. She's a two-time business owner. Is this business number 3, the current one?
No, this is business number 2.
This is business number 2. All right, awesome. She supports visionary entrepreneurs across the world to create conscious, sustainable business that creates massive impact and income. She is the brand new managing director of the eWomen Network Sonoma County chapter in California, and she'll tell us a little bit about that. She has some amazing university experience that I'll ask her to share as well. She's been on TV, on radio. She's a national speaker. She hosts her own live event. She has one coming up soon. And I think the part that I want to share, because I get so excited and jazzed about talking to you about this, I think because I'm missing having these kind of conversations, but you're currently writing your dissertation, Artisans of the Heart, on using eco-psychology to help entrepreneurs connect to the new paradigm economy that promotes social justice, spiritual fulfillment, and planetary health.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So that was a mouthful. So I think I just like to start there with the concept of eco-psychology, because we've had some great conversations about this and how this can really support us. And what you're seeing is this new paradigm economy, because it's pretty darn exciting.
Yeah, great. Thanks. It's funny because, when you sort of prep for one of these conversations, you think about all the things you could talk about. And then I love that you just put that right in at the front. Like, just go for the big stuff right away. And I was just before this call working with my writing coach that I work with on a weekly basis to just keep myself on track with my writing schedule. As you both probably know, being entrepreneurs, it can be difficult to...
Content.
Yeah, especially academic content. It's really a mind shift, So I have to keep myself on a schedule to make sure that I get enough writing done. And I was
is that writing specifically for your dissertation?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, specifically for the dissertation. So I'm in proposal phase. I'm still working on the proposal. I haven't advanced to candidacy yet. So, I'm hoping that I'll have my dissertation done in a few years. It's a long ride.
Yes, it is.
But
I've done that.
Yeah. So eco-psychology for me is, it's a set of tools. It's a philosophy. It's an academic field and body of knowledge. But for entrepreneurs, what I really hope to introduce in my work and my eventual book out of this dissertation is that our connection to the earth has really been severed in many ways. And why I call this Artisans of the Heart is because I work with entrepreneurs who are they're conscious about social justice for individuals, for groups, for communities, right? And as coaches and therapists and practitioners of many varieties, they're very focused on heart-based work with clients. And I am passionate about that too, but I also saw that something was missing. What's missing is this bigger picture of, if we're working on really changing and transforming our lives for the better, stepping into like a higher level of consciousness as individuals and groups, then we have to be talking about the planet too, because we're in this sort of dire crisis right now with the amount of resources we've used, and that most of our ways of being on the planet and living right now are not regenerative. They're using too many resources. And so many scientists are predicting that we may have already hit that peak point where we've gone past the amount of resources on the planet, and there's no going back in certain ways in terms of water and energy and oil and other planetary resources and elements. So as artisans of the heart, people who really care about the world and other people, we have to be having this conversation. And one of the ways we have that conversation is between us and the planet itself, and not just with people. So, when I was in grad school doing my master's, I was looking at corporate social responsibility and the sort of bigger picture of businesses and organizations and how they relate to the planet and how they're being responsible in using resources or not. Right. And as individuals, we often think like, oh, I'll be more sustainable. I'll buy organic and I'll recycle. And, there's simple things we can do in our day-to-day lives. But what all really shifted for me was going on a vision quest and being on the earth for 3 days, just me and some water and a little tarp, no food. I got really clear, like, wow, we need to be doing this. We need to be like our most basic selves as humans on this earth that we call home, to really re-embody what it means to be a natural being. We are organic matter, just like the earth. So that was kind of heady, but that's where I'll start.
Really cool. Like we're can you see we're like getting closer to the screen? We're like really leaning in.
I love that. Two things strike me. I guess the first one was, it seems like, I don't know where you grew up or anything, but it seems like Sonoma is a perfect place,
Rhode Island,
to be working on. It's not just a very California thing, but it really aligns well with, I'm sure, the wine industry up there. The people that are up there are farmers and are all about sustainability and all about, that French term terroir, or however you pronounce it, just what comes out of the earth. The other thing that strikes me about it is how aligned it is with Buddhist philosophy in terms of how interconnected we are with everything around us, not just the animals, but the plants and the earth. Yeah, fantastic. That's such a neat perspective. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are so many pieces to pull out of that, and knowing that your calling is to work with entrepreneurs, and having just recently had a conversation about this amazing event that you're creating. One of the things I love, so maybe you could share a little bit, is how you're pulling this beautiful philosophy and belief and really way of being in connection with the earth into the live events that you're offering.
Yeah, great. So two things. I definitely want to approach that. And I want to just mention, because Brad mentioned the Buddhist philosophy, that's definitely influencing my work. It's part of my daily, weekly practice in my own life. My partner and I both lead and attend meetings to do meditation and really live in a mindful way. And we build a community in Sonoma County around that.
Perfect.
And it's also part of the methodology that I'm using. So I'm using a method called mindful inquiry, which really brings the rigor of looking at this topic critically from the perspective of texts that have already been written, the experience we have as humans in this work, and using Buddhism, and really specifically looking at our own attachments and addictions that we have as human beings, right? So I love that you picked that out, and I didn't really even talk about it.
I'm a Buddhist.
Yes,
Buddhist. So
great. So we're talking the same language.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so I want to bring all of that into my retreats and my events. And so the event that Minette is speaking to is my upcoming retreat mastermind, which is for conscious entrepreneurs to come together on the Sonoma Coast in Bodega and really consider how they want to host live experiences for their clients. So my intention for this experience for the participants is that they would walk away with their own event, and hopefully it's a retreat style event, really looking at more intimate conversations between people, creating the depth and impact that you want with your clients. And we're going to come together and create those. And we're going to do that on the coast in a place that's, really lush and beautiful in this little valley. There's grass and hills and longhorns and a pond. And then we're going to go and experience the ocean. We're going to have an adventure that's outdoors. So part of my work is to build in peak experiences that are connected to the earth into my retreats.
I love that. When I saw the content that you were working on, it just sounds so amazing. And just, so I would love for you to bring this back to how you see the work that you're doing and what you see happening globally and environmentally as a shift in our paradigm around the economy.
Great. So as entrepreneurs, we have this great power in the world. And we often think about it socially as like companies and corporations have all this power, right? But if we look at, and I'm not going to quote the statistics because I'll probably get them wrong off the cuff here, but it's something like over 90% of business in the US is actually small business. So that's under 500 employees. And then there's this really significant number of people who are even smaller, like they have less than 50 employees, or in our world with coaches, healers, therapists, practitioners, we are often solopreneurs or working just with a little bit of support, right, from somebody else. And so as individual entrepreneurs, we make decisions all the time that if we look at that as a group, we're actually shifting the economy every day. And we're not necessarily thinking about it in that way. So when it comes to sustainability, our decisions really do matter. And as a community of practitioners and coaches and really what I call artisans of the heart, these heart-based entrepreneurs, I believe we need to come together and have conversations about how do we move forward into an economy that's both sustainable for us as people, the work that we're doing, right? That we can create that right livelihood that's mindful of everything that it touches. And that is really looking at the impact that we have on people's lives, the impact we have on resources in our communities, and that we can shift the economy to be better for all of us so that it is socially just and it is able to sustain us for, many, many years to come, that it can be generative, and that we stop depleting resources, but we start doing things, and this movement is already happening. It's not like we're recreating it, but the new paradigm is to just take it to the next level.
So as a solopreneur or couplepreneur, as we go by,
yes,
we have our events in hotels in LA.
Mm-hmm.
We're surrounded by lots of cement and airplanes and Ubers and all sorts of stuff. How can we move the needle towards what you're talking about, and be mindful and still run the event in that area? So I guess I'm just looking for some practical advice. I get the part about having a retreat. We have a client that's having women come together for a canoeing retreat, coaching in the Minnesota.
I'm considering going there.
Oh, okay. So
I wasn't going to be in Nova Scotia. I'd be there with you.
Yeah.
So I get that. I get the part about how we can, how it's helpful to have those type of events, but there's some reality has to creep in.
Yes.
How can we still have our events and move towards what you're talking about?
Yeah, this is a really fabulous question, and one I was just literally working on in my writing session. As I'm thinking about, my new role with eWomen Network, there's this large annual conference that's held that brings, 2,500 women entrepreneurs together in the Dallas, Texas area. And I'm like, okay, if we think about the sustainability of our businesses as individuals, the place where it gets a little rocky is where we have air travel, we're in hotels, we're eating food at restaurants. That's our biggest use of resources. That's the biggest use of my resources, right? For most of us that are doing this kind of work where we're either home-based or most of it's really online. There isn't a lot of resource use until we get to those events. A lot of questions come up there, and it's a case-by-case situation, really, that we need to just start having a little checklist that says, okay, when we're looking at the location that we're using, are they using sustainable resources or practices in their business? If not, and we must be at this particular location, is there any way that we can be more sustainable? Can we take our recycling out? Can we compost if it's not available? Can we limit the use of resources like paper while we're in person? So really like tangible, small things that step by step we can look at in our own business and just think about every time we're making those decisions, like, what is the impact of this? And could we shift it to have less of an impact that's negative on the planet? And then, the reality of it is that there's benefits to coming together. Why we do events and retreats is to bring community of like-minded and like-hearted people together. And the ideas, the partnerships, the things that can be born out of that space is immense. So can we bring sustainability to that conversation? Can we be conscious of that in the work that we're doing with the individuals we bring together? And then, we do our best and we have to stay detached, right? That's the Buddhist part. Stay mindful that we do our best. Each time we'll do better. And we just have to trust that that's going to be enough and keep doing our work.
So I see a conference in your future around this concept.
Okay.
Right? Because these are such important topics and in the live event industry. So other than building community, why do you think it's so important for entrepreneurs to either host and or attend live events, especially when they're starting out in their business?
Yes, great question. So 2 things. One is hosting live events for us is bringing that community piece together in our business, right? So there's a depth that we're not going to be able to touch if we are never in person with each other. We're human beings. We started out in villages, in little small tribes that traveled around the planet together, right? Like we have done this for millennia as human beings on the planet. And so now our lives look different in this online world where families don't live together anymore and they sort of go across the country or across the planet. And we're all spread out from our little core group, right? So then we create core groups around us and we find those people that are across the world that are similar in enough ways that we can come together to create something more beautiful. So that's the beauty of live events. And then also the transformation aspect. So for me in my own life, retreats and live events have been pivotal for me in my self-growth, my personal development over the last 20 years. And major turning points in my own healing and growth have come from those places where we come together and we're held in that community. And we're given permission and sacred space to be able to do our work together. We're given permission to be exactly as we are and to step into the new vision we have for ourselves.
I love that. Yeah, I did. I just, it just popped into mind, one of the women at our summit, our creative business summit a few weeks ago. So one of the ways we do that is through creativity and helping people reconnect to their creativity, people that haven't colored in years. And that felt like they got told when they were a child, you can't draw, right? They really confuse art with a capital A, being Picasso, with just putting color on paper. And there was a woman who stood up at our last summit. And so I gave them mandalas to color and I encouraged them throughout the weekend. I said, color while you're listening to me, right? It helps ground the information. I mean, it's a kinesthetic learning tool, but it also is very much when our hands are busy, our minds are clear to think and ask questions. So my note takers were so nervous, right? About what I color and take notes. And so they were all really happy at the end of the day, except for this one woman who stood up on day 3 and had just started about lunchtime on day 3 to color her mandala and shared that she was pissed off at mandala. I'm like, how can you be mad at mandalas, but she felt like she was so disconnected from her creativity that even just choosing the colors to put inside lines that were connected for her, or having been told her whole life that she had to color inside the lines, and here people were asking her to color inside the lines. And what she noticed was when she let go of the anger and the fear and just connected to the color, it was the peaceful, calming, mindful experience that we had, intended it to be. And so it's this fascinating journey to watch people connect with their creativity in the same way they connect with the earth, connect with their thoughts, connect to their self, connect to mindfulness. And I think sometimes we think that we have to use these really complex tools and processes to help people reconnect to self. And I think where you come and Brad comes with the mindfulness piece and the meditation piece, and I come with the coloring piece, that they're great examples of how to show people what we're longing for and what we're missing in some really practical ways that aren't complicated.
Yeah, so simple.
Yeah.
Like so simple.
Like go sit outside under a tree and write your blog post.
Right.
Just so I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah. I'm lost in thought now.
I know. It's like deep thinking. I love this.
Yeah.
But so one of the things I'm curious about is this evolution of a business from live events to building online, and how because you work with a lot of newer entrepreneurs who are just starting out in their business. And what we hear from our clients, I'm sure you do too, is like, oh, I need leverage. I need an online program. I need a home study. I need passive income. I need, when they haven't yet mastered actually connecting live with people.
Yep.
But how do you help them navigate sort of that rocky terrain, or, between live events and online programs?
Great question. And I also want to follow up, because I'm not sure I totally answered the last one of like, why do we want to use live events to actually build and grow our business, especially if you're a newer entrepreneur, right? Yes. And so the answer to both of those questions for me is really about connection. Connection's one of the pillars of my business. It's part of the philosophy that I teach to all of my clients, and it is the primary stepping stone for everything. So from very simple, like I'm meeting a new person and they could be my client, find connection first, be of service second, make an invitation third. Like don't even approach making an invitation until there's actually a relationship. Connection is about relationship. And so that's the same thing for events and using live events even early on as an entrepreneur, that you get to create this depth of connection in those live in-person relationships, right? So there's this concept in music: when instruments start playing, the vibrations will start to integrate together. And we do that as humans too. And it's more difficult for us to do that online than it is for us to do it in person. And we totally get that in the experience of it. When we see somebody, we meet someone and we're like, they were awesome. Oh my God, we just found this jive together, right? Like the energy was just flowing. Or, oh, I met this person and they're totally not for me, right? Like we feel it in our bodies. So coming into a live event, we have that experience in our businesses. And for your clients, you're going to be able to create relationships that will be more sustainable over the long term than if you were to just know somebody online. Because online, that person can just jump to the next person, right? And if we bring them in person with ourselves and our other clients and create a community, they are much more likely to gain more from their experience with us, have more value from the packages and the purchases that they've invested in, and then stay in our community longer. And that's not to say you can't do that online. It's just different. And so your online programs, I'm really a big fan of video. I use that for all of my group programs. Yeah, I think most coaches are now, right? So it's kind of this hybrid between the whole online, we can't see each other world to the in-person world. And so coming back to that point of connection and relationship, and using events in your business can help you to do that really early on if you're ready to jump in. But it can also be overwhelming. So that's what I want to help people find, is some ease through that overwhelming feeling that you can get.
So speaking of overwhelming and live programs, and you're in the middle of getting ready to, or have launched and are focusing on filling a live event.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you kind of did sort of a beta test, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
would you share a little bit about your personal process? Because I think it's so helpful for people to hear what you did, that they don't have to make this like huge splash or have this giant room filled with hundreds of people as their first event.
Yes, great. I would love to share that. So I did a beta event where I just had 4 people come to my home, and we did a run through, and I had a 3-day event with them. For most of them, it was included because they were clients of mine. So I just invited them along. They didn't have to pay anything unless they wanted to stay on site. For the group that I brought together, they ended up all being local. So that's a good way to do it. Just bring in your clients and colleagues that are local. And we went through the 3-day curriculum, and we saw where the ups and downs were. And, one of the ways that I build in my business and the ways that I use creativity is really that I am a learner by doing. I've always, and that's what I did in higher education, is help faculty create experiential service-based curriculum in their classes. And so that's because I learned that way. I learn by doing. So those 3 days gave me this sort of like blank canvas to say, here's what I think it's going to look like. And I drew an outline, right? And then I'm going to bring these people in, and they're going to bring their experiences in, and we're going to start to fill it in with some color. Mm-hmm. And then as I went through the 3 days, the big thing that I saw, in addition to content that filled in that canvas, was my energy. Like, how am I going to manage my energy over these 3 days? And what really drew my energy away from me, and what really brought it back in. So we're going to focus on that in my retreat, really looking at how to manage your own energy as the leader of the experience.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. I think we're on to our 4th summit now, and
we just completed our 4th.
Yeah, and quite a number of live client events, and the pacing, the energy of the room, how much information you output to the people that are listening to you compared to how much time they have to process.
Right.
All of those things add up to the difference between people being just completely zapped at the end of hours, or people walking away from 3 days almost or refreshed even. Mm-hmm. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I wanted to add one more thing too for our listeners. Think about what Audra just said, right? She had 4 people over to her house for a few days. You don't have to turn this into a 100-person event that takes over, a giant room that you had to pay for with audio visual stuff.
Yeah, that you could easily invest $50,000 in, because we know people who do that. That's their event model.
Start at your house, start with a little meetup group, whatever it is. You don't have to start big, and you can test drive this stuff and test drive how long it'll take and how nervous you are, and get rid of some of those things.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that.
And
that's why I asked the question. Right, in the first place.
I would add the next step, like after you have people in your home, and if you can't have somebody in your home, you could do this first. But so for this retreat that I'm doing next, I'm actually renting out a house through Airbnb. And so I have this affiliate partnership with this luxury resort that's on the Sonoma coast, and the house is actually on that property. So this is a unique situation where there's a home you can rent, and you have, you don't have to even work with the hotel to do the event, because we're in our own space that we're renting out. But then there's rooms that people can be in. So they can stay there at the hotel, and they can, deal with their lodging on their own, but then we're in the house, and we can put the production of that in the living room.
It's a great idea.
So that's a way that you could do it too, is to just rent out an Airbnb home for a weekend as a trial run, or even to have your main events, to have small intimate retreats with your high level clients.
Yeah, I love it. There are just so many great ideas and practical tips and strategies. So share the name of the event. Where is it? And can people still come? Are you full already?
Great. So it's the Retreat Mastermind for conscious entrepreneurs who want to build their own live events and retreats. It's going to be held at the Sonoma Coast Villa, which is in Bodega, California on Highway 1, 10 minutes from the beach. We are on May 24th, 5th, and 6th. That's a Wednesday through Friday. I did that on purpose because most people have their events Friday through Sunday. This is business development. We don't have to take our weekend away, right? We can do this during the week. Yes, there's still spots. I've got about 18 of 30 spots filled already. So we definitely have people coming, and there's more space for people to join. And anybody can learn more on my website, audragrady.com/retreat.
Awesome. audragrady.com, and Grady is GRADY.
Yes.
.com/retreats.
Yes. /. I always say backslash.
That's okay. So I'm curious what you're reading right now, because I know you're a voracious reader like we are. Mm-hmm. What's at the top of the list?
Yeah, so the one I've been spending the most time with is a book that I probably should have read years ago, but it just didn't, how it goes. They all come in their right time and place. So I'm reading John Mackey's Conscious Capitalism, owner, founder of Whole Foods, co-written with Raj Sisodia.
Is that influencing your PhD work?
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because I'm looking at small business and entrepreneurs that are really more either solo or sort of hyper small, right? Like 3 people in their business. But looking, all of us, right?
Yeah.
Conscious capitalism is, setting the groundwork for what we're going to be able to step into as more singular entrepreneurs. And we are not separate from this whole economic system. Capitalism is affecting our lives every single day. And we work with those hotels and airlines and food providers. So we are contributing to the movement of conscious capitalism with all of our actions. So it may not be sort of a driving force of my dissertation or my future book, but it's definitely contributing in conversation.
I want to get your reading list that integrates Buddhism and entrepreneurship.
And eco-psychology, yeah, sure. So my bibliography is coming soon.
I'll be reading that. Very cool.
That's awesome. And anything else you want to share? Last words of wisdom for those conscious entrepreneurs?
Yeah, well, I loved the quote that you put in the beginning. I do think it's really fitting. And you said, let's bring it back at the end. So I want you to say it again. And I think it's really just... we're building our businesses for others, to be of service to others, but it's also really about fulfilling our own destiny, right? And why I call it Artisans of the Heart is because we are drawn by our soul's work, right? That's right livelihood in Buddhism. We have a specific duty to fill as humans on the planet. And so if you don't know what that is, go find it. And if you do, then do it, because that's our job to do here while we're living this short life.
Wise words.
I love that. So the quote was, be there for others, but never leave yourself behind, by Dodinsky. And I think what we have discovered is that being a solopreneur, couplepreneurs, or that micro business in a sense, requires a fine balancing act between continuous improvement and rigorous personal growth, as well as confidence and skill building on the business side.
Yes.
Right? That it's such a combination of both. And if we think we can just focus on building skill without really focusing on the mindset piece, I don't think that we're going to have the success or the impact that we really want to have in our business.
So true. Yeah.
Awesome. Audra, thank you so much for your time today. I want to remind everybody that another friend of Audra and mine, Molly Mandelberg, and I are hosting an event on Saturday, May 13th in the Woodland Hills area called Creative Freedom in Action, where we're going to show you how online programs fit into your overall business plan. They should be a part of your plan, not your whole plan. And we're bringing the techie, geeky, super creative all together in a fun day.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
It's going to be fun. You can find out more at bit.ly. That's a bit.ly link, bit.ly/creative freedom in action, no caps, all spelled out. And again, I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. This is my amazing husband, Brad Dobson. We are the Path to Profit podcast, and you can find out more about us at pathtoprofitacademy.com. Audra, thank you again so much.
Thank you both so much.
John is one of my favorite. I love all the podcasts, but I loved the depth and the intellect of this one, so thank you.
Thank you.